Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Artificial Future Podcast, and this is where we talk about this new disruptive, rapid evolution in technology. Unprecedented, actually. I'm Pete Gruber. Thank you for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, comments, we love to get interaction from the audience and love to debate, go down rabbit holes, whatever it takes to address some of these topics. Typically, what we do in these sessions is we collect information, changes that have occurred in the previous week since last Wednesday, and there's a lot. We're going to talk about CES, which has drastically changed from what it used to be. Consumer electronics show up in Vegas. It used to be appliances, audio equipment, stereos, that type of thing. And nowadays, you can see that AI has infiltrated, and there's some really cool new gadgetry that has come out of that, has been announced. The background that I have, I asked AI to render a recording studio with AI function, and what it threw in there was a robot. You see that little humanoid-looking robot? By humanoid, I mean 2 legs, 2 arms, head, chest, that type of thing. And it seems to be dialing on that mixer board. So the reason that I chose that theme is one of the first topics is apparently researchers have made a significant discovery using AI neural network models, suggesting that musical instinct may emerge naturally from the human brain.
Pete, can you pull your mic a little closer?
Sure. Tilt it up a little bit too. So by analyzing various natural sounds through Google's audio set, they found that certain neurons in the network selectively responded to music, mimicking the behavior of the auditory cortex in real brains. So this spontaneous generation of music selective neurons indicates that our ability to process music may be an innate cognitive function formed as an evolutionary adaptation to better process sounds from nature. Remember, we have evolved, and the survival of the fittest dictates that we're able to respond well to our environment. And back when there were saber-toothed tigers and predators everywhere, recognizing certain sounds was vital to our continuation as a species. So the fittest seem to have the most highly evolved auditory cortex capability. They go on and they say, so this study used artificial neural network to demonstrate that music selective neurons can develop spontaneously without being taught music. And these neurons showed similar behavior to those in the human auditory cortex, selectively to various forms of music across different genres. And this research implies that musical ability may be an instinctive brain function that's involved to enhance the processing of natural sounds. Looks like we've got someone coming in. Alternative Energy, Aotearoa, Kia ora, Morena, good morning. Thanks for joining us, by the way. They say that music is often referred to as the universal language, and it is known to be a common component in all cultures. So they speculate, could musical instinct then be something that is shared to some degree despite the extensive environmental differences amongst cultures? Well, this particular research team, led by a professor called Ha-Wung Jung from the Department of Physics, announced they have identified the principle by which musical instincts emerge from the human brain without special learning using an artificial neural network model. Previously, apparently researchers have attempted to identify the similarities and differences between the music that exists in various different cultures and try to understand the origin of universality. So the paper was published in Science 2019, revealed that music is produced in all ethnographically distinct cultures and that similar forms of beats and tunes are used. And then the neuroscientists have also previously found that a specific part of the human brain, the auditory cortex, is responsible for processing processing musical information. And that's precisely why a band can go on tour, travel the globe, and draw massive audiences regardless of what culture they're in or whether they even speak their language. Now, what Professor Jung's team used was an artificial neural network model to show that cognitive functions for forms of music spontaneously result in processing auditory information received from nature without being taught music. So they used Google's large audio set, which is a large-scale collection of sound data, and taught the artificial neural network to learn the various sounds. They then discovered that certain neurons within the network model would respond selectively to music. Then they go on. They say, in other words, they observed the spontaneous generation of neurons that reacted minimally to various other sounds like those of animals, nature, or machines, but showed high levels of response to various forms of music, including both instrument and vocal. So there you have it. AI is being used to teach us some more about music. We have a picture I want to throw up, guys, and it is the cartoon picture. Comic strip, actually. There we go. And I was amazed. ChatGPT is actually able to create comic strips. So I played with it a bit. I created our own, and one of the ones I did was give me a Tesla Roadster and show me create a comic strip basically that talks about its huge success and how it generated the EV revolution, and it did a great job. The one I wanted to pop up here, though, was the one that inspired me to do that, and this was a simple comic strip with a prompt that said, once upon a time, there was a boy who saw a cute girl on the train, and then AI took over. And it seemed to instinctively understand where this was leading. And you can see there's a young couple, then they date a bit, then they have some children, they go on vacations, there's marriage, there's bliss, and then they're growing old together and they've got a 50th year anniversary. So it's just amazing to me that here's another job that potentially is going to be replaced. Script writers, artists, the comic book creators, basically. So for those of you that have the tools, MidJourney, ChatGPT, DALL-E, play with this. This is exactly what I end up doing. When I'm inspired by something like this, I try my own version of it, and it's just amazing what it can come up with and what it can render. Highlander is joining us. It's the Resonance. Thanks, Highlander, and as you always say, kindness is free. Cisco PDR Tool says, I thought you fixed Teslas for a living. Do Teslas make music? Well, let me explain. We do Teslas. We repair Teslas, Gruber Motor Company. We re-engineer. But we have a number of different podcasts. The EV podcast is Tuesdays at 10. It's general EV. By 11 o'clock, an hour later, it switches over to Tesla Roadster specific. Mondays, they have a COM podcast. Different team comes in. Wednesday, today, we have our AI podcast. And then Friday morning, we've got the power guys that come in. Gruber Power services critical power equipment all over the country. And they have a wide range of topics they bring in as well. So here's another interesting one. MidJourney is one of the great image generating software packages that is produced by AI. And it turns out that version 6 now is released, and it can process up to a 350-word prompt. Now remember, generating meaningful, interesting content has very much to do with the quality of the prompt, what you're asking for, in other words. It's kind of like construction. You have to develop a scope of work in order to create something, and a prompt is exactly that. It paints the parameters that you want in great detail. And with 350 words, you can basically give it an entire poem and or storyline and have it come up with something for you. So it looks like they continue to increase its capabilities. All right, so getting over to another topic here. All right, MIT physicists have metaphorically turned graphite or pencil lead into gold by isolating 5 ultra-thin flakes stacked in a specific order. Now, catch that word metaphorically. These are not alchemists that turn raw metal into real gold, but let's continue and see where this article is going. They say, then the resulting material, by stacking these ultra-thin flakes, graphite flakes, can be tuned to exhibit 3 important properties never seen before in natural graphite. It's kind of like one-stop shopping, they say, and it's in the world of nanotechnology. They say that nature has plenty of surprises, and in this case, we never realized that all of these interesting things are embedded in graphite. Further, they say, it's a very rare material to find, and materials can host this many properties. Well, graphite is composed of graphene, which is a single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a hexagon resembling a honeycomb structure. And in the world of EVs, graphene is been lauded as the next generation of solid-state batteries. It has some amazing properties, and it's a lot safer than current lithium-ion. They go on, they say graphene in turn has been the focus of intense research since it was first isolated about 20 years ago. More recently, about 5 years ago, researchers, including a team at MIT, discovered that stacking individual sheets of graphene and twisting them at a slight angle to each other can impart entirely new properties to the material, from superconductivity to magnetism. So this field of twistronics was born. Now, superconductivity is an amazing feature in that it would change the way that we do computing. It would create miniaturization. It would control heat, and of course make computing infinitely more powerful. A superconductor essentially allows the electrons to flow unimpeded. It doesn't generate any heat, and it is a perfect conductor, no resistance. In the current work, they say, we discovered interesting properties with no twisting at all, however. And he and his colleagues discovered that 5 layers of graphene arranged in a certain order allow the electrons that are moving around inside the material to talk with each other. This phenomenon is known as electron correlation. A fancy term for it. And it's the magic that makes all of these new properties possible. And you got to know that AI was involved in this. And it looks like the field of nanotechnology is continuing to improve, and we're going to see some miraculous discoveries that come out of this. I got a video here, if you guys can throw that up. It's called Waiter Drones. And it is actually a short video. We're going to hope that we can get audio on this. And there is no audio. Okay, then I'll do the audio and you throw up the video. So this one, again, sounds like job replacing type, capabilities. And you'll see in a moment here why this is the case. There we go. All right, now there's the barkeep, and check out how he's delivering that glass of beer. These are mini drones that are actually able to deliver food or drinks in this case. There we go. And this one looks like it's going to go out to a car or to a table outside the restaurant. No, we're going into an adjacent building. Aha. And we have some visitors there, and they're getting... Oh, and you can return things, too. So it looks like waiters and busboys could be replaced by this type of technology. Be interesting to see how these robotic devices are going to be, how they're going to be implemented. And of course, there are things like costs that need to be considered. But it seems to me that a small drone like that able to, deliver food like this is got to be less expensive than a human being that works, 40 hours a week, collecting tips and all of that, and medical benefits and, taxes withheld and all of that. Now, there's an interesting notion. With this kind of labor being replaced, how do we retrieve taxes to keep the infrastructure fed? I'm sure that there will be a solution.
Oh, I'm sure the government will figure out how to tax AI.
All right, now getting back to Computer Electronics Show. And it looks like we've got some people chiming in. Steve Rose, he says, "Hi, Pete. I was wondering if ChatGPT is a good way to get started in AI, or is there something better?" My opinion is that is probably the ultimate. What do you guys think?
Feels like it's the easiest. I was taking a look at the Grok that you Grok that you set up, and I don't know. It's kind of seems like it's limited a little bit.
What I find is we use, by the way, for text type generating, we use ChatGPT 4, and we were using 3.5, still do in various parts of the company, by the way, but we're up to 4 now. 4 now has been combined with DAL-E, which is an image generating type capability. So you can do both text versions and you can do image with ChatGPT 4. And the subscription rate per month, Jesse, do you know what that is for ChatGPT 4?
I don't. I can look it up.
I think it's around $20, $30 or so per month. And then you also have Bard, B-A-R-D, which is the Google equivalent. And you've got Grok, which is the X equivalent. What I often do when I'm trying to get some assistance with either a script, text, email, some form of verbal communication or written communication, I'll try all 3. And they are distinctly different. ChatGPT, for example, I was trying to get some information about Ukraine because we're getting ready to do a video about how to end the war in Ukraine. ChatGPT came 3 times, came back and said, "I'm sorry, I can't comment on that." The guardrails were just very strict. Bard, on the other hand, had a bunch of comments. They were all politically correct. There wasn't anything that I could really use because they usually play it safe, right? And then Grok, just like Elon said, it's going to be sarcastic and flippant, and it was. So distinctly different personalities, just like your friends, for example. Each of them is going to be a bit different. However, there is a subscription, I believe, for all 3. And the most universal, as far as I'm concerned, would be ChatGPT 4 at this point. And how would someone subscribe to that, Jesse? Where would they go to sign up?
You just search ChatGPT on Google.
Okay, fair enough. Then we've got Rob H. 5935. He says, "Buy all the pencils." Yes, we were talking about graphite and graphene earlier. And, carbon is the most plentiful element on Earth. And, of course, it's something we're trying to get rid of now because we have way too much hydrocarbons going into the atmosphere, allegedly causing global warming. And, by the way, I say allegedly because we just did a video on global warming, and there was a lot of controversy. There are polarized positions left and right. There are the naysayers. There are the flat earthers. There are a variety of different viewpoints about that. But one thing that I think is undeniable, like Jesse pointed out, you can't really dispute the fact that the temperature on the planet is increasing. However, the impact of that is what's debated. All right, Highlander says, "Don't get me started on taxes and automation." Yeah, this is a healthy disruption that I think is going to create a lot of consternation for the tax authorities. It was kind of like the information age. Do you remember when we had eBay? It came along, and then, the authorities attempted to figure out, how do we tax this stuff? It's kind of like you go on a garage sale, right? And you give cash to the person for whatever it is you bought. They're not going to report that. Well, the tax authorities would love to get a piece of that, as they did with eBay, and eventually they began to get their piece of the action. Stephen Rose, "I'm excited about how AI will help our engineers develop better battery development." Oh, totally. And the rate of innovation and technological improvement at the biological human level is fairly predictable and slow compared to AI, which is virtually instant. It doesn't have to, research. It doesn't have to check out things. It knows everything, basically, unlike a human, which has to educate himself or herself on certain topics before they become competent. That's why we have colleges. That's why we have years of, schooling to become a doctor, a cardiologist, or whatever. AI has it in an instant. All right, so getting back to Computer Electronics Show, one of the things, and I'm going to give you about, I think a half a dozen or so, that I found to be most interesting that were AI generated. New things, augmentations, for example. The first one that I was impressed with was the Gyro Gears Tremor Reducing Glove. And this is a product that's developed by a company called MedTech. Or no, it's a MedTech startup called Gyro Gear. There we go. And it is a wrist-worn device that uses gyroscope technology to automatically counter and cancel out Parkinson's-caused hand tremors. If you're familiar with Parkinson's, it is a type disease. It's a neurological disease that causes tremors eventually that can get so severe that the patient can no longer even feed themselves because of the violent tremors that they undergo. Well, those of you familiar with gyroscopes, when I was a kid, those were coming out and they were becoming toys, and we thought they were really cool. The thing spins, and it has a natural resistance to any kind of movement while it's spinning. They are using this type of technology to cancel out tremors, so that people that have severe Parkinson's can now again use their hands and they can feed themselves and probably walk, and some of those other things are going to come along with that. So they say that such tremors are one of the most common symptoms of Parkinson's, and they can rob a person of their ability to work, drive, or even feed themselves, which makes this gyro glove a potentially life-changing piece of technology. And the first thing that came to mind here is AI, the positive benefits and the anticipated benefits are augmentation in a number of different categories. Physical strength, for example. We've talked about these exoskeleton robots. Instead of being able to lift 200 pounds now, a human can essentially lift as much as the exoskeleton has capacity for. So, and it's taken the strain off the body. So that's just one augmentation. And of course, there are many more. I mean, these glasses, if they were prescription, would be an augmentation. Contact lenses, hearing aids, pacemakers. We're already beginning to introduce augmentations that make us more powerful, smarter, able to hear better. And the smarter one, by the way, gets even more interesting. There's a quote later on that I'll share with you as well. But as continuous miniaturization occurs, eventually, there will be implants, augmentations that we'll be able to carry with us that will enhance our senses, for example. All right, so that was one of the ones at CES that I was pretty impressed with. Then there's another one, and this one came from BMW. BMW was on site at CES 2024 to demo its remote valet feature, which allows a person sitting behind the wheel of a driving rig take control of an actual car outside somewhere on the planet. It doesn't matter where. So they're sitting in like what's the equivalent of a gaming console, with a VR headset, and they can now exit your car at the entrance to an airport or restaurant. You tap a button on the app, and a remote driver, a human in an office somewhere else, not AI, would take control. So your car drives you to the airport, you get out, you're done, and then your personal assistant or a service that you have hired remotely takes your car, drives it to a parking spot or to your house, to your garage, and when you're ready to have it come back, you tap another button, and the car will remotely drive itself back to you. BMW said that its vehicles are already equipped with all the hardware needed for remote valet. The company just needs to tweak the software, which means that the tech could roll out relatively soon. So talk about self-driving to the next level. All right. Everybody knows that, we've got something from Highlander. He says, I'm excited to learn how to use ChatGPT-4. You guys introduced me to it. Thank you, and I'm humbled. Well, we're all humbled. Thank you for pointing that out. One of the guys that we work with in the EV space, Paul Erickson, who repairs Tesla Model S's, by the way, used to do forklifts, but now he's actually upgraded to the Tesla Model S's, and every couple days he shows a picture. Here's another one, and it'll be a Model S on a trailer or Model X that's coming to his service shop. So I would suspect that Paul's his forklift customers are probably feeling a bit annoyed because he's getting very distracted with the Tesla cars. But anyway, the reason I mention him is he used to point out, you guys have the best background pictures. You know, how do you guys do that? And of course, it was MidJourney at the time. I know he has a subscription to either MidJourney or to DALL-E, ChatGPT-4, because he is posting some exquisite pictures. And some of them are, car related. He's got he lives in Iowa, I think, and a lot of snow. But once you get a subscription to any one of these AI programs, it's addictive, guys, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. Highlander says, we use gyros on the submarine. That's all I can say. Oh, it gets into the world of top secret at that point. But yeah, gyros would definitely be useful when you have a lot of movement outside. Khalid Mohammed says, how are you? And he sends us a rose. Khalid, I think, is in Jordan. Thank you for joining us. And then Martin O in Sweden says hi. Thank you again for joining us. Sweden, I hope the labor dispute with Tesla is beginning to resolve there with If Metall and Tesla. In the meantime, though, it turns out that Sweden definitely has a soft spot for Tesla vehicles. And I believe that that was the best-selling vehicle or car in Sweden this last quarter. All right, so everybody knows that houseplants not only look good and provide some decoration in your home, but they're also highly useful for removing contaminants from the air because they essentially take in carbon dioxide, which we exhale and try to get rid of, and produce oxygen as a result, which is also something that we need. So there's a symbiotic relationship between houseplants and us. A French startup, though, called Neoplants, and this again is from CES. They had a booth there. First landed on our radar in 2022, they say, with an announcement that they have genetically engineered houseplants that are 30 times more efficient at pulling common pollutants from the air than unedited counterparts. So, plants do a pretty good job, but apparently this genetically engineered, and it looked like a philodendron that they have here in the picture, which is a fairly common houseplant. It's that triangular shaped leaf. 30 times more efficient. So they told Freethink that they expect to begin shipping their bioengineered houseplants to consumers in North America early this year. That's going to be interesting. So instead of needing 30 houseplants or 50, like my wife has, one might do the job.
Can they engineer them to be watered less? Because I always overwater them or I underwater them. There's like no in between.
That is a great question. Yeah. I'll give you a tip, though. For my birthday, like 35 years ago or so, a friend of mine bought me a meter. It had a wand on the end, and you stick that down into the dirt, and now it tells you whether it's too dry or too wet. And my plants began to thrive and flourish after I got that device.
I know which one you're talking about because they also have a pH, I think, recorder on some of them too. Mm-hmm. And I always use them for the outside plants, never in the inside. I forgot about that.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, so for those of you suffering with plants, and according to some people, you have to talk to them too. That helps, they say. And I think that has more to do with the carbon dioxide that you're releasing and giving directly to the plant as you're talking to it. Hey, chime in, guys, if you have some thoughts and ideas about how to manage your house plants, where it looks like that's a topic for discussion today.
The nice thing about houseplants, they don't talk back.
Yeah, that
and
too.
They always agree with you.
Right. You have to wonder how AI is going to augment your house plant maintenance or even exterior plant maintenance. I'm sure that there's some technologies there that could be adapted or used for that. So here's another one at CES: Skywheels electric skis. If you're looking for a new eco-friendly personal transportation option, and you have a need for speed, they say, French startup Skywheel showcased what it says are the world's first electric skis at CES 2024. It's called the Skywheel 1, and this system is basically like strapping an electric scooter onto each of your feet. Then you use a remote accelerator or brake with the skis, which can be used on any terrain, according to Skywheel. The system has a top speed of 16 miles per hour. Not very impressive, right? But I suppose if you're standing on, something that's the equivalent of a skate or a skateboard, 16 miles per hour is probably plenty fast. But then they go on, they say, unless you set it up for use on private land, so they have restrictions. And now it can be modified to go 50 miles an hour. I don't know about that. So these are motorized skis that are expected to retail for $26.25, but Skywheel is currently accepting pre-orders via Indiegogo for $17.50 a pair. So those of you interested, you now know how to get them and what they'll do for you. All right, here's another really cool one, and I suspected this was going to happen sooner than later. Capella's baby translator. What they say here is that most babies only say their first words when they're 12 or 18 months old. I have a granddaughter that's now 14 months old, and yeah, there are words. They're somewhat distinguishable. When she says, "Bye, baby," that one's loud and clear. But raspberry, which is her favorite treat, is kind of muddled. You can't quite make that out. My last two boys, I have 6 kids. There was Max and Peter. All right, Max is the youngest. Peter was about 14 months older than Max. And Peter used to be our translator. Max would just say some gobbledygook, and then Peter would say, he's asking for this or this, because he understood him. All right, well, here's where AI comes in. They say that most first words are in the 12 to 18-month-old range, and even then, figuring out what they want when they're crying can be frustrating and a guessing game for parents. To try to alleviate some of that frustration, this company Capella, Cappella, a startup founded by engineers from MIT, Harvard, and Stanford. Well, those are some pretty impressive colleges. They partnered with hospitals to train an AI to translate baby cries. Then they put the tech into a baby monitoring application, which they demoed at CES 2024. After downloading this app now on 2 phones, you place one near your baby at night, and if they cry, then the app will alert you on the other phone, which you keep by your bed or wherever. But this is now just like lots of baby monitor apps. But the difference is it will now also tell you the most likely cause, such as hunger, pain, anger, whatever. And I'm sure that this technology will continue to evolve and improve, but so far the first steps have been taken, and it looks like we're going to potentially get a baby translator. There's nothing more frustrating for parents than having a child who's obviously miserable, crying their eyes out, and you have no idea what it is. You're trying to feed them. They're not hungry. They're not thirsty. You know that something is bothering them, and this kind of a device would eventually give you a clear path, which would be far less frustrating. Bunch of comments coming in. Paleo John says, just want to say, love your content. Need more WV Tech content. Well, thank you. Highlander, Maximilian. Yep, that's my youngest boy's name. What is he now, like 30 or something like that? 29. You guys, he's an on and off member of our social media team, by the way. Onato Amos says, hi, good evening. I'm watching you live from Ghana, Africa. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, that's a long ways away. And then Wayne Levitt says, I have some plastic indoor plants. They're awesome. Even fruiting plastic lemon tree. There you go. Look at that.
I wonder how edible that lemon tree is, though.
Yeah, probably cause some agita.
Yeah.
All
Just
right.
get a cactus. They're easy.
Yeah. Yep. You know, all these cactus that we have around the buildings here, when we bought a lot of these buildings in 1995, I was into cactus and what I would do when I would go out various places, especially the resorts because they have higher end cactus, you know. I would ask them if I can take a cutting. And it doesn't take much, even a little 2 to 3 inch cutting. You stick that into dirt here in Arizona, and within 5 years, you have a magnificent cactus plant. And what I then began to do was research, what is the origin of these cactus? I have cirrus cactus. I have cactus that are from Peru. I have cactus from Africa, like the euphorbias, for example. And they are extraordinarily easy to plant. They don't do well in the house, though, because you don't get enough dryness and enough sun. But outside, I highly recommend it. For those of us that live here in Arizona, we have what's called desert landscape. If you try to grow grass, it's a pain in the butt because you got to water it. And then in the summertime, when it's 115 for 2 months, it just burns and dries that stuff up. But cactus thrive in this climate. So plug it in the ground and it grows. So getting back to the CES, the new and exciting technologies. Here's one called Orcam's AI-powered ears. And again, heavy augmentation with artificial intelligence built around humans to provide augmentation for us, make us hear better, more powerful, all of that. They say that an estimated 40 million American adults have some level of hearing loss. And while hearing aids can help them in many situations, they aren't so useful in crowded rooms. At that point, the tech amplifies all the sounds in the room, making it hard to listen to any one voice. And I'll give you an example of that. My wife, many years ago, before I even knew her, got a serious flu, and it affected one of her ears, and she has hearing loss. And anyway, about 6 months ago or so, she finally got a hearing aid. You know, there's a lot of ego issues there. You don't want to show people that you need a hearing aid, and it's visible, in other words, as well. But she finally got one, and she began to say things like, I've been in Costco, for 25 years, and I never realized that you could actually hear a conversation in the next aisle. But she also has another problem, which is exactly what they subscribe or what they describe, is that it doesn't distinguish, it doesn't discern well, and you get everything along with it. So when she's in a coffee shop, for example, oftentimes the noise becomes overwhelming for her, and what she has to do is dial it down on her cell phone. She's got one of these, Wi-Fi capable type hearing aids. And so, anyway, I understand what they're saying here. This device, it's an assistive tech developer called Orcam Tech, or that's made by Orcam Technologies. And it consists of a dongle that you plug into your smartphone and a pair of earbuds. An AI-powered app listens to the world around you and creates a profile for each speaker or noise. You can then choose which profiles you want to hear through the earbuds and which ones you want to mute. I'm going to have to tell my wife about this one. But again, heavy augmentation at CES using AI. All right, here's another one. HaptX's haptic gloves. Virtual reality, they say, is increasingly being used for job training, but because tech typically engages just 2 of the trainees' senses, sight and sound, the VR experience isn't quite the same as what you would encounter in the real world. To overcome that limitation, this tech startup called HaptX, H-A-P-T-X, has developed haptic gloves that use microfluids to provide tactile feedback, allowing your hands to feel objects that you touch in virtual reality, in VR. The U.S. Army is currently using the gloves to train medics on simulated battlefields. And when they tested them out at CES 2024, it was much less stressful situation because they petted a virtual cat. So it looks like another level of augmentation that is rapidly becoming available. All right, Highlander says, a cactus in the Great Lakes. Really, gang? LOL. Yeah, that's true. You'd be amazed, though. There are certain types of cactus that thrive indoors. They're not the type we grow outside here, obviously. A saguaro indoors would, of course, take over the room fairly quickly, but they grow very slow, don't they? What is it, like a foot every 10 years?
Yeah, it's weird. I used to remember the more information about them, but I think it takes like 100 years for it to even grow its first arm.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it's like 50 to 75 years or something per each arm.
Yeah. Fascinating cactus, too, by the way. When I first came out here, I had never been out west. Well, and by the time we got to Texas, we began to see some cactus. And the first one I remember that I was intrigued with was the cinnamon cactus, or the paddle cactus. And, you know, they have these little round ears, multiple ears on a larger ear. And I walked up to one. I thought, how cool is that? And I grabbed one and I broke it off. That was a horrible mistake because they have these fine micro needles. And driving was difficult that entire day after that because they get inside, under the skin, and it's constant pain.
Have you ever had a run-in with the teddy bear cholla?
Oh, the cholla, all the time. They call them jumping cactus here, too. Yeah. And I think it's because they secretly are able to jump when you're looking away. Suddenly there's one on your leg, right? Yeah. Do you know that there's a story about Honeywell years ago, in the 50s, actually. They were starting to work on semiconductors, and they needed very fine type probes. And they found that by using the cholla cactus needles, these were perfect for this application. So there's a high-tech application for cholla needles.
Yeah, I know they're so sharp that you could, like, I think, like, not even brush up against them, just be a certain, distance away from them, and they'll actually, like, cling on to you. They have a sheath with at the end of the needle with like a little barb too, so not only do they go inside you, but they latch on almost like a fish hook.
Exactly. They have what's called reverse barbs, and once they penetrate, of course, that prevents you from easily pulling out, and it's very painful, but it's like a fish hook, precisely what you described. Yeah,
I remember brushing up against one, and I combed off the I guess it's called a pear after it breaks off, and I had to comb it off, and then I actually had to get a lighter and burn off the needle just to get it out.
Yeah, they're highly evolved little things that have designed or through the evolutionary process to propagate themselves. You know, back east we used to have burdock. We don't have burdock bushes out here. I don't know why. Maybe it's too hot or something, but after a walk in the woods, invariably you'd have these little burdock round things that are clinging to your clothes. They weren't like the cactus, though, painful, you know. They were just, you just ripped them off. They were like Velcro. There you go. Yeah.
Cockaburros? Is that what you're talking about?
Cockaburros, yep.
Yeah,
burdock, yeah.
They have some up at Lake Pleasant because usually around this time of year the water's down at Lake Pleasant, so you'd throw your lure out there and come back, and the cockaburros would be attached to like your spinnerbait skirt or something. Yeah. You
know, now that reminds me that and this may be legendary, I don't know, but Velcro was actually invented by looking at these cockaburros and how they attach. Interesting stuff. All right. Bunch of comments. Highlander, good to know about the hearing aid. The VA wants me to have a hearing aid because as a sonar technician, I lost my hearing. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So, yeah, there's certain professions that I guess would affect some of your senses. Sony J says, loved you in the Matrix. Yes, thank you. Highlander, how will AI help my hearing aid and vision? Well, we can speculate here. I mean, the hearing definitely is already there being talked about. Vision, though, think about that. We have a certain spectrum that we're able to visually respond to and see. Well, with AI, it opens the bandwidth exponentially. We'll be able to see things that insects can see, for example, infrared, or beyond that. X-ray, I don't know if we can go that high. That would be cool too, wouldn't it? That's way up on the spectrum.
X-ray and MRI, I'm surprised there hasn't been more breakthroughs on that. I mean, an MRI, like I had one a couple months ago. I mean, it feels like you're just going inside a tube of toothpaste, and it's super claustrophobic, at least for me, it is. And it's like, how we've not evolved from this technology. So hopefully AI can get us into something a little bit more comfortable.
Well, now we're talking about nanorobots that can traverse the capillaries and your veins and actually travel through your body. You know, Hollywood has been doing this for many years. I think there are movies that, you know, where they get miniaturized, they go inside the person's body, and then they start looking for things.
Yeah, and so instead of maybe piggybacking off of old technology, maybe creating something completely new to eliminate that. Yeah, I could see that.
Cool stuff.
Pete, there's another application too for military.
Yeah.
What if you could see what your other members of your military unit can see? So imagine you're like...
Yeah, collectively, you're right.
Yeah, so imagine like a group of Army Rangers is storming a compound, and you've got a 3 or 4 man group over on one side, and then the other guys are on the other side. You could choose which person you want to view one of their eyes through one of your eyes or something like that.
Crime fighting, all right? They storm a building, they go in the front, and the thief or whatever goes out the back or the side or a tunnel or something. In that scenario, all points of exit would be examined or would be visible.
Yeah, and you could live feed them into an AI that's, you know, monitoring everything. So the guys essentially could just, even if the people can't see the feed themselves, but all of them are wearing a special contact or something that feeds it into an AI that can see things they can't.
We can extrapolate that out a bit. Does the notion that crime doesn't pay now becomes very true. Does that mean that we eliminate crime? There's no more a potential for it. Now, if we could do that with war, just think how this planet would change. All right, anyway, I'm going to plug my movie or the next video here. It's going to be about Ukraine again, and if you're interested, keep an eye on our YouTube channel within the next 3 weeks. We'll have a very provocative new video coming out about that topic. Hi, I am Jessica, AI Arts, and she sends us a heart emoji. You know, you're absolutely right, Jessica. The level of artistic content that has been streaming across my Facebook site is exponentially different than it was a year ago. So many people now are taking advantage of these wonderful tools and creating magnificent types of art. These prompts, for example, this morning, there was one that was the city of Atlantis. You know, it is a fictional city for most people. There's really no hardcore evidence that this existed. But I asked AI, give me some of your versions about what Atlantis looked like in its heyday. The first version was underwater, which is where, of course, people think it was at one point. I said, get rid of the water. This was above ground, and I would like to see its magnificence, you know, terrestrially, you know. And it came up with some wonderful representations of that. But you're right. In the world of art, again, it's addictive, it's highly distracting, and you could spend a lifetime just generating images and having fun with it. Highlander, to the video team. Why won't I say Highlander? It shows up in the gray on YouTube podcasts, shows app in gray, why I tried Google in it. I couldn't just help on this one.
Yeah, he clarified. He said, should have said, why, so what's up with that? I'm not really sure what you're trying to say, Highlander. I mean, we see your name coming through with all of your...
We do, yeah.
With all of your text, so I'm not really sure what you mean.
We've got Long Win joining us. He says, hello, my name is Long, and I have 4 years in the field of inverter repair and control systems. In addition, my expertise is also in microcontroller programming. You know, we hire people at Gruber Motor Company, and we're always looking for top-notch engineering talent because so much of the car's repair is electronics. We have both factions. We have the low-tech auto, suspension, paint, body, brakes, you know, mechanical items. And then a lot of work is done inside electronics because nothing in the Roadster electronics is reproduced anymore, and there aren't enough customers to make it cost effective to recreate things like the power electronics module, the big inverter. So what we end up doing is a lot of deep dive component level repair, and that requires a unique set of skills, just like you've described. Another one. Hi, I'm Jessica. I've been studying up with a few different AI art platforms. Lots of fun and creativity. Absolutely. It's always a surprise what it comes up with. All right. It looks like researchers.
Real quick, Pete.
Yeah.
For hi, I'm Jessica. Let us know what platforms you use other than MidJourney and ChatGPT and DALL-E. If you have any good image ones, send us some names, please.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, we're always on the lookout for additional powerful programs. So there was a World Economic Forum recently, a couple weeks ago or so, and it's called the DAVOS session. Sam Altman was one of the attendees. And here's some excerpts of his presentation. First of all, Sam Altman has a sign above his desk. And by the way, Sam is one of the founders of OpenAI. He and Elon used to work well together. Don't anymore. Elon is now doing his thing with Twitter and Grok and creating a competing version of OpenAI. But anyway, Sam Altman has a sign above his desk that reads, "No one knows what happens next." And as the CEO of OpenAI and the creator of ChatGPT, he's better placed than most to predict where artificial intelligence is heading and to address what it can and can't do. So here's some of his key quotes from the session. He says, "Productivity gains will grow as people use AI." Amen. We're using it here. As I walk through our call center, the management staff, even the support staff, oftentimes I hear how much they're enjoying using artificial intelligence. And the tools that are available to them are things like, in Gruber Motor Company, we have a personalized ChatGPT system that is a Roadster-specific type AI. The mechanic engineers can actually just simply type in, what does this error code mean when a Tesla Roadster throws this? And it then spits out a number of different options from our knowledge base and from the open source information that was released by Elon a couple of months ago or so. The support staff, I was talking to the CFO the other day, and he says, when it comes to things like benefits, which are constantly changing, or things like regulations, I've been using ChatGPT-4, and I ask it, what is the latest on this particular topic? Now, you have to fact check some of it, granted, but it gives you a synopsis that makes it much easier for you because fact checking doesn't take as long as the research required to gather this information by yourself. The call centers, people writing emails, needing some form of communication. The research that we're doing in social media, preparing for different types of videos. This morning, for example, I needed to figure out what percentage of Ukraine was now under Russian control. And I got a page and a half of information, the evolution, how it progressed, and what the current situation is. It is an extraordinarily powerful tool, and the projections initially were that it's going to save you 1.5 hours to 2 hours of work per day. I think it's actually more than that. Depends on how you use it, of course. All of the videos that you see, the thumbnails, the thing behind me, that's all AI generated. We have a green screen, and we just simply get a theme, and we ask AI to generate that particular theme for that show. All right, so getting back to Sam Altman's quotes and predictions. He says, even with its limited current capability, now that's a tall order because we're very impressed with current levels of AI, but somebody like him that helped create it saying, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. and its very deep flaws, he says. People are finding ways to use this tool for great productivity gains or other gains and understanding the limitations. People understand tools and the limitations of tools more than we often give them credit for. People have found ways to make ChatGPT super useful to them and understand what not to use it for the most part. He says that AI has been somewhat demystified because people really are starting to use it now. And that's always been the best way to pull the world forward with a new technology. Application, use, and the technology continues to be implemented, used, improved, and more innovation results. You know, the thing I like to always go back to is all major inventions began with the recognition of a phenomena. You remember the guy that was dissecting a frog's leg and was confused why when he put a piece of metal on the frog's leg, it was a dead frog, by the way. It was a frog's leg dismembered from the frog. It twitched, it moved. And that was one of the genesis or one of the seeds of understanding electricity, current flows, muscle reaction to that. TENS equipment came from that. You know, people that have muscular skeletal problems have a TENS machine. That's exactly what it's doing, is it's sending signals to the muscles to alternately contract and relax to hopefully relax that muscle. Got a bunch of comments coming in. Highlander, my nieces love your backgrounds. Thank you. Yes, those are cool. Highlander says, any podcast I go to live, and if I say Highlander, it shows up in gray on YouTube, and I don't know why.
It probably thinks you're referring to your own username, and it just puts it in gray to make it stand out from the rest of the text as a username. So I think that's probably why. The next one, too, I had my monitoring off, so the TikTok audience wasn't able to hear my mic. So Jessica should be able to hear me now. I was asking if you have any other good AI image generators that you're messing around with other than Dolly and MidJourney, which are what we use, then feel free to let us know because we want to find some good ones.
Exactly, yes. And we have a Facebook site too. It's called MidJourney Prompts. And what we're encouraging people to do is to share their prompts with the image so that people can learn how to alter, modify, and enhance their prompts to get better results. So here's something else that Sam Altman says. Again, if you came in late, founder of OpenAI, definitely AI knowledgeable, currently the CEO of OpenAI. He says AI will be able to explain its reasoning to us. I think it does that already because we've done that. We've said, what did you mean by this? Or, you know, how did you extract this? That type of, you can actually talk to ChatGPT, Bard, or to Grok, and it will communicate with you much like a human being would. So he says it will be able to explain its reasoning to us. Part of being able to trust technology involves understanding how it works. But Altman says truly understanding how generative AI operates is a little different than the way that people think now. He says, I can't look in your brain to understand why you're thinking what you're thinking, but I can ask you to explain your reasoning and decide if that sounds reasonable to me or not. So we're going to be able to do this with AI, he says. He says that the AI systems will be able to explain to us in natural language the steps from A to B, that logical conclusion that it reached, or that summation. And then we can decide whether we think those are good steps, even if we're not looking into it to see each connection. All right. AI will not replace our human care for each other, he says. When the IBM chess computer, Deep Blue, in the last decade, 1997, beat the current world champion chess player Garry Kasparov, commentators said that it would be the end of chess and no one would bother to watch or play chess again because a computer had won. He says, but chess has never been more popular than it is now. And almost no one watches two AIs playing chess. We're interested in what humans do. He says, when I read a book that I love, the first thing that I do when I finish it is find out everything about the author's life. I want to feel the same connections to that person that made this thing that resonated with me.
And Pete?
Yeah.
Just a quick aside, because I saw this on TikTok yesterday. Magnus Carlsen, who's like one of the best chess people out there right now, I saw a TikTok of him yesterday, and he was playing against 3 different people simultaneously, blindfolded.
Blindfolded?
Yeah.
And he's psychic or what?
They would just say the move. They would say,
Gotcha.
This person moved this piece to this thing, and he won all of them.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, 3 games. It was the craziest thing.
You know, that is reminiscent of my uncle, who in the 60s used to play chess with postcards. And they would have the map of the chessboard on the card. He would then draw in the move that he made. And of course, it took a few days to get the response back. But that was his way of playing chess with people remotely. And then I have another story as well. In the 1970s, there was a large DEC 10 computer. Digital was the number 2 computer manufacturer in the last century, and eventually just caved in and went away. It was bought by Compaq, actually, one of the PC manufacturers, but a very large presence at one point in time in computers, and the DEC 10 was the ultimate digital computer. It took entire rooms. There were large 7-foot tape drives and washing machine-sized disk drives, 40 and 80 megabyte, by the way. Massive computer. And I had remote access to this computer from a terminal, a dumb terminal that I built at home. And with a acoustic coupler, I used to get into this computer at night and code, play, just have fun. And one of the things on this large DEC 10 computer was a chess game, a computerized chess game. And I figured out at one point that I could go into high priority mode and say PS, which stood for play self. And this computer would actually play against itself. I didn't realize that when I was doing this, all the batch jobs that were trying to run at night would come to a grinding, screeching halt because I was in high priority mode and I basically used all the bandwidth and all the computing power. Well, needless to say, I got in trouble for that. They finally figured out who was sucking all of that bandwidth at night. And my manager, God bless his heart, didn't fire me, thought it was kind of humorous that, I was hacking to that extent, and just basically slapped my hand and said, I don't want to have to explain this to the IT guys ever again. So stay out of their soup. But anyway, chess, computers, there you go. That's my story. Highlander says, I worry about the far less educated people did the AI jobs that are replacing. All right. Yes, there's actually a quote that says what we need to work on is stupidity instead of AI. And I'm not sure I agree with that, but my personal feeling is that as AI begins to take hold, and the augmentations begin to take hold, we're going to have personal mentors. We're going to have information at our fingertips. Our learning processes will become infinitely more efficient, faster, and more accurate. And I think the average intelligence level of the planet, if we don't continue to kill ourselves, is going to improve. And we're going to head toward a utopian society.
Not only that, but it would be much easier to sustain than people. And this is going to be kind of a hard thing for teachers, but it could replace teachers. So imagine you have your own teacher in any grade level. You have your own teacher focused solely on you.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, but they know exactly how you learn best.
Right.
So it's tailored perfectly for you and adapts with you as you grow and teaches you everything you need to know. And it's all run on a computer. You don't have to pay a salary or, worry about training people or maintaining teachers and all this other stuff, which is a hard thing for teachers. But eventually AI will replace them, I think.
And the other thing that's so cool about what you just described, that process, is that learning will never stop. You will have a mentor, you'll have a voice inside your head, whatever it is, that will help you relate to the reality that you're currently in. If you're in the bank and you're curious, how does that gigantic steel door work? AI will tell you, and your education will be continuous. You see a sports car going down the road and you say, wow, what the heck was that? It tells you what it was. It tells you the cubic inch displacement. It tells you the manufacturer. You know, there will be no restriction to the amount of learning that's available to you. And of course, you get to regulate it. You get to throttle it. You get to shut the voice up, basically, or pump it as much as you want.
If we go far enough into the future, too, with the augmentation, we're talking about eventually that will just exist in your head.
Well, there we go. Now we're into solipsism and, you know, is this the real reality or are we living in a simulation? And there's a rabbit hole that we've gone down before, but you're right. It's that is definitely an option or a possibility or a reality.
It's a reality, yeah. Once they get Neuralink figured out, then it's another 5 or 10 generations of Neuralink before we have Siri in our head.
Yeah. So here's something else Sam says. New economic models for content will develop. Now, he made the distinction between large language models displaying content and using it to train on. He says when a user says, hey, ChatGPT, what happened at DAVOS today? We would like to display content, link out to the brands and places like the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or any other great publication and say, here's what happened today. And then we'd like to pay for that. We'd like to drive traffic for that, says Altman, adding that it's not a priority to train models on that data, just display it. He says in the future, large language models will be able to take smaller amounts of high-quality data during their training process and think harder about it and learn more. Then when content is used for training, Altman says, we need new economics and models that would compensate the content owners. Big problem. AI can crawl behind paywalls. So when the Wall Street Journal creates content and you have to subscribe and pay for that to get it, AI just simply subverts that and goes around it and extracts what it wants. Well, what Altman and all of the AI experts are focused on is attempting to regulate that in some way and create some fairness with that process. Of course, in my interpretation, these artists that come up and say, "Well, you scraped the web and you grabbed my stuff, and therefore I'm going to sue you now," that just sounds like a money grab to me. But I think that any of these AI companies, if they're responsibly attempting to make it right, that's a step in the right direction. So let's see what else he says here. He says, if we're going to teach someone else physics using your textbook and using your lesson plan, we'd like to find a way for you to get paid for that. If you teach our models, I'd love to find new models for you to get paid based off the success of that. So there is current dialogue and conversation focused on how to achieve that goal. All right, let's see if there's anything else that Sam is throwing out at this Davos conference that's of interest. Huh. I think I need an AI mouse. My mouse sometimes goes flaky on me. Got a bunch of quotes for you. Won't go through all of them. We're almost out of time. Highlander says, on the X platform, I post the song of the day. I want to coordinate it to the periodic table of elements. Okay. Jensen Huang, co-founder and CEO of NVIDIA, says, 20 years ago, all of this AI was science fiction. It was in the movies, remember? 10 years ago, it was a dream, a possibility. Today, we're living it. He nailed it. All right, another one from Ray Kurzweil. He says, AI will reach human levels by around 2029. Follow that out further to, let's say, 2045, and we will have multiplied the intelligence, the human biological machine intelligence of our civilization, 1 billion-fold. Now just think how that would change our reality. how we live, how we interact, whether we're still on this planet. Now remember, there are a lot of people that are thinking we need to be an interplanetary species. All right, here's one from Andrew NG. He says, artificial intelligence is the new electricity. Good point. It's the printing press. It's the steam engine. It's the internal combustion engine car. It's the information age. And you know what? All the ones that I mentioned probably will pale in significance to what artificial intelligence is going to be able to do as it begins to alter and change the course of history and our lives. All right. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make, and that's according to Nick Bostrom. Kristen Hammond says, every serious technology company now has an artificial intelligence team in place. These companies are investing millions into intelligence systems for situation assessment, prediction analysis, learning-based recognition systems, conversational interfaces, and recommendation engines. Companies such as Google, Facebook, and Amazon aren't just employing AI, but have made it a central part of their core intellectual property. All right, now here's Mark Cuban. He's weighing in, and he says, I'm telling you, the world's first trillionaires are going to come from somebody who masters AI and all its derivatives and applies it in ways we never even thought of. I think he's selling the Mavericks. Did you read that this morning?
Something about the majority share of the Mavericks or something?
Well, maybe he's going to maintain a position, but he's not going to be the guy in charge.
I got to read up more on it, but it didn't sound like he was going to sell everything. It just, I think he's kind of stepping down in a way. Yeah.
Okay. John McCarthy says, our ultimate objective is to make programs that learn from their experience as effectively as humans do. We shall say that a program has common sense if it automatically deduces for itself a sufficient wide class of immediate consequences of anything it is told and what it already knows. Good point. All right, Dave Waters, if people trust artificial intelligence to drive a car, people will most likely trust AI to do your job. Jensen Huang says, AI will make it possible for the internet to directly engage people in real world through robotics and drones and little machines that will do smart things by themselves. Ray Kurzweil says, by the time we get to 2040, we'll be able to multiply human intelligence a billionfold. It was similar to what he said, or that quote from earlier. He says, though, that this will be a profound change in nature. The computers are going to keep getting smaller and smaller. Ultimately, they will go inside our bodies and brains, make us healthier, make us smarter. So again, we're talking about a merging of machines and biological organisms. You know, I've often pondered this too. As we get technology that replaces human parts on our body, eventually we're going to get to a point where there isn't any more flesh left on the body because we've got such cool augmentations and more powerful ways to interact. So at that point in time, where are we? Where does our consciousness reside? Now, this is a philosophical question.
Well, there's the idea that it resides in an alternate dimension.
Okay.
So it's just tied to our physical body somehow, but the reason we can't see it or interact with it or quantify it is because it's actually adjacent to us in another place.
So is there a reprogramming or a program in the future that will be able to run, an application, a program, or whatever, that will jog that notion loose that we are tied to this body and consciousness can now move into an inanimate object?
Yeah, it's the same thing that you had discussed earlier with vision. So how we can only see the certain spectrum. Once we have augmentation for our eyes, we'll be able to see the rest of the spectrum that we know is there. Mm-hmm. Well, we have theories that all these other dimensions are there. We haven't really been able to prove them in the same way that we've been able to prove the visible light spectrum, but I believe it's the same thing. Once we're able to open up and see what other spectrum of realities there are, that's the change that I think Kurzweil's referring to.
Mm-hmm. All right, Highlander says, you nailed it on education, Jesse. And looks like we've got Highlander also giving us a wow with a clap. All right, well, you know what? We're coming to the close on this AI topic. Again, we appreciate all of you joining us. These happen every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Any of you that didn't see that, of course, someone pointed out that me saying that doesn't really work because anybody that didn't see it wouldn't be listening. But anyway, I'm going to go with it anyway. You can see us on YouTube is basically what I'm trying to say. These things are posted out there. They're out there for posterity, and you can review them at any point in time. And Aaron over there is actually always does a great job of time stamping all of the topics. So if there's one that you missed, you can zero right in on it and go to it. Again, we encourage all of you, use AI, become familiar with it, embrace it, forget about the FUD, the fear. This is a good thing, and we're going to make it a good thing. So, oh, wait a minute, we've got another one here. Steve Rose says, AI and genetics engineering is another exciting area. Good or bad, in my opinion? Let it rip. Let's see where we can take this thing. It's a kind of like getting on a roller coaster. You know, you have a lot of fear and trepidation, and you know that you may lose your lunch, you know, all of that. But at the same time, there's a level of enthusiasm and excitement that just that overrides all of that fear. It's going to happen whether we fear it, whether we fight it, or whether we accept it. It doesn't matter. So go with it. That's my advice. Jake Riddle, Wave Charging, a subsidiary of Ideanomics, is working on a 500 kW DC fast charging wireless power transfer equipment. Do you see megawatt over 1 million watts or over 1,000 volts being incorporated into the current charging infrastructure? For example, buses, 100-stall boat docking facilities. You know, with sufficient safety devices, there really isn't a limit to voltage or to current. Look at the high tension lines that are crisscrossing the United States or parts of the world. Those are oftentimes 1 million volts plus, and definite advantages to going to higher voltages. As technology continues to evolve and improve, I don't see an issue. I don't see a problem. I think that that's quite real. And I mean, look at what's happened with electric vehicles. We've gone from 400 volts to 800 volts. They're talking about 1,000 volts now. We've gone from 6 volts to 12 volts for the low voltage portions, 48 volts. Technology will figure out a way to continue to keep it safe. And the only other example I have for you there is take a look at data communications in the last century. And I came from that. In the 80s, we had RS-232, we had 9600 baud. And then came coaxial cable, which is the way they thought that you run higher speeds. And then we figured out over twisted pair, by breaking up near-end crosstalk, you can breathe new life into copper. It doesn't need to be fiber. You can get bandwidth out of copper. Now we have category 6, 7, 8, and fiber is still waiting for copper to die. Technology continues to evolve and improve. All right. Again, we thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week at 10 o'clock if you choose to join us, and thank you for being there.